NASCOURT just keeps getting more interesting, and recently Bob Pockrass put out the contingency plans that NASCAR had in case of a boycott from teams. While this never happened, it is a crazy what if, and I think it's something really interesting to get into. So full credit to Bob Pockrass with these screenshots, as these are more or less the gold codes that were alluded to earlier on. Let's jump into them. Now, some of the first plans have to do with possible boycotts that the teams would push onto NASCAR, whether for part of a race weekend or the big parts in general. If they boycotted, say, practice, well, then there would be PR responses and maybe canceling qualifying as a deterrent. If there were other boycotts, say, prior to the green flag and on the grid, again, there is a lot of other pieces, including the possibility of shortening races, whether that be to in some way save money for the good teams in their eyes that actually showed up to race, or also on top of that, more or less just to save them money. There is also, quote, the small chance to use support series like ARCA and Trucks and the Xfinity series to run races as a Cup Series race. On top of that, there are other things in here, for instance, like having PR responses and then maybe moving the support race to be the main event or the Cup race, which is similar to what NASCAR did, for instance, the first time they had a race at Talladega, where outside of a couple people that were not part of what was basically a union at the time of drivers, they just had the support series come up and race in Cup. So this is a very old school move by NASCAR, and I don't think this is in any way a surprise that it's still in their playbook. Another part of this is that the Cup weekend would go on no matter what in the case of a full weekend boycott, whether that mean that the Trucks or Xfinity series move up to be Cup on whatever weekend it is, or in the case of a rare standalone event, say for instance if Xfinity were in Portland and then they had the Southern 500, well then that Xfinity weekend in Portland would be canceled and immediately moved back to the Southern 500, just as an example. So it proves that NASCAR at all costs was going to keep their main cash cow going no matter what the teams did. Also with this too, NASCAR would have contingency plans with Goodyear, the TV providers, and possible lower series teams in a way that they would basically make those series the Cup series for that given weekend based on how this looks. Meaning that they would have maybe a Xfinity Cup car for once, as us fans would want. But it's kind of crazy just thinking how far they would really push this to go. Now, in more detail, this also means, for instance, that NASCAR could completely change the way that fields are paid and made. For instance, there could be a balance of different open entries. And I'm assuming that they mean not only the Xfinity, ARCA, and Truck teams could run Cup cars if available, but now based on this, it could almost be a multi-class event. You just basically need to have as many vehicles as you need for the event. Doesn't matter what they are, doesn't matter the specifications for the most part. They could redistribute the money to open teams to incentivize more of the open teams that don't have charter support for their other entries to be able to race in those events, and even reduce the field size to 30 cars. This probably being the effect that they would have if, say, Front Row and 2311 boycotted, and then that went into 2025 where you didn't have the SHR charters anymore in there, which is something that maybe, depending on how those two teams fare in the lawsuit, could be a possibility for 2026. So this is basically going full nuclear on NASCAR's part, and the fact that they had all of these in this detail ready to go shows that I think we were a lot closer to the nuclear option than a lot of people probably gave credit for before. Now, they show the order that these cars and these entries would be put in as well, especially if they had 6 months or less when it came to the existing charters and open entries, being the current charter owners that would actually stay, then the next-gen open cars, which probably wouldn't make up all that many. Then they would follow that up with Xfinity entries that they could get, and if all else failed, they would add ARCA entries into the field, which they would say they would try and make parity across these platforms for them to either have power maybe given in certain aspects, or aero changes, or different things like that. Again, this is the full nuclear option. As fun as we would love to have multi-class racing, this would be a complete cluster. This is what would be the worst possible option if there were boycotts last year, or even if at any point the teams boycotted after this. Now, the possibility of 6 to 18 months is a little more in line with what could possibly work more. They would have all next gens used no matter what the entry was. But the potential new charter holders, I think, is what's catching a lot of people's eyes. Now, there is no really confirmation if these guys and all these teams were all in talks with NASCAR about this, or if this is really who NASCAR had just handpicked to be the ones that could fill in the stead of those who were boycotting. For instance, they would have Xfinity, Truck, IMSA, IndyCar owners, and they leave examples like JR Motorsports, Sam Hunt Racing, Andretti, Ganassi, Rahal, McLaren, among so many different ones that we both recognize in NASCAR, but as well as ones that maybe we don't see in NASCAR, but other motorsports. And also new owners, for instance, that you see throughout. This, to me, is showing that NASCAR basically was going to do anything possible to win this, even if it meant begging other motorsports and other teams to basically either come back, join, or move themselves up. And I'm betting you, especially if the money was there would be a lot of those ones jumping over to NASCAR or up to the Cup Series. It's kind of a weird what if when you think about it. They also go in depth for what the next-gen parts would be that they would have to redistribute or they would have to create, give to different teams and whatnot. From engines all the way to electronics, in every certain way, everything would have to be in one way or another redone for these new teams in this new meta. Also, there were backup plans too, to the investments that NASCAR would have to put in to basically run everything out of shop the way that they had talked about. What kind of facilities they would need, the different OEM support that they would need, how sponsorship, PR, everything could completely change to basically be coming from in-house for NASCAR. Heck, they even had a floor plan that was put into these docks, and it looks pretty legit to what they would probably do with it and how each team would be working together, basically in each OEM's specific space. Monetary breakdowns were also put into this, both for 36-car entries and 30-car entries, as well as if this was more of a long-term thing for NASCAR and how they could save money depending on which ways they could be more efficient with said money over time. Another part of this is money allocated to teams when it comes to rent, equipment, technology, everything when it comes to how to get the cars built and get them to the racetrack. And this isn't just one or two things here or there. This also includes everything from the engines to the tires, every single part of how they basically can get new teams to come in and then just sort of jumpstart them right off the bat with NASCAR support and NASCAR planning all on top of that. And then you also add the personnel side of it that they show. Drivers, road crews, pit crews, spotters, everything would be completely redone with every bit of their payment and money allocated and decided by NASCAR sanctioning itself. Not by the teams, not by sponsors, not by any of that. NASCAR would get the final say. And this goes to equipment as well. NASCAR would basically at this point run every single aspect of the sport in every single way. And even down to travel and everything having to do with that. It's clear, based on all of these plans, NASCAR was going to take this all the way if need be, and if the teams were to stare them in the eye, NASCAR was going to do their best not to blink. And in my opinion, it's kind of scary just how close that's been. It's kind of scary to the direction NASCAR could go, where at the end of the day, they really could just say, screw it, it's our field, our ball, and nobody gets to play but us. So with that, I want to give you an admittedly loaded question. Do you think NASCAR could survive anywhere close to the way it is now if any of this was put in place? And what do you find the most interesting of these possible contingency plans? Let me know down in the comments below. While you're at it, leave a like on this video, share this video, and subscribe to this channel for more great and fun NASCAR content. Thank you so much to all my channel members for your continued support. And be sure tonight to tune in after the Bristol night race. We'll talk all about it live on this channel. So until then, have a good one.